Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to listen to me on the last day of the conference, afternoon. This makes me appreciate you even more, each one of you. And we have like a little cozy audience here, but I'll do my best to, to make this time worthy for you. My name is Semyon. Well, start with explaining why you should care about what I'm about to say. I noticed that there's a bit of competition between speakers, presenters in the conference about, how old they've been around in the industry, essentially how old they are. Here's my submission, probably not the strongest one, but this is the data storage device that, I used to spend to store first games that my brother and I have developed being kids. Our first computer was ZX Spectrum. Still big fan of that platform, and coming from those roots, it was very natural for me to go and specialize in pixel art. So here's some of the games that I worked on during the first decade of my career. You can see that the first game on the left here is even before the feature phones. It's actually for Pocket PC. If you remember, there were such devices. You couldn't make calls, but you can play. And kind of counts as mobile game. And you can see here that what's been happening is that devices were getting more powerful, screens were getting bigger, better color support, and essentially at some point, there was less of demand of pixel art. And it was quite a big change for me, because what I love about pixel art is creative control over every pixel of the image. And starting using brush and doing the traditional digital art felt like cheating almost, or felt like I was giving away my creative control. It doesn't sound like a big deal now. Back then, it was quite big, massive change for me. I kind of felt depressed about it because things have changed, which kind of reminds me maybe a bit of what's happening now with AI art, but more on that later. Luckily, I believe that the art is what happens, inside your head, not that much, with your tools. So you can still use old school tools. And here you can see some of the sketches that I've done in 2010, which ended up, being this guy, who's Omnom, the hero of Cut the Rope series of games, which has become quite a big success. We were super lucky. We had a very good time. And from that moment on, by the way, many people call it frog. It's not a frog, it's a green monster. But that guy kind of started the company off. Initially, it was just pretty much my brother and I in 2010 who founded Zeptalab. Over the years, we released many other games that I'm really proud of, such as King of Thieves, Cats, Bullet Echo. And I think it gives me a good perspective, quite a unique perspective, because my background is digital art, but also as a company founder, I'm involved in hiring and, growing or sharing my knowledge and seeing how the careers of artists develop within the company. So I know the topic from both sides, which hopefully gives me an interesting angle. So this talk, the main two parts will be about what has changed through the maybe last decade or even longer in mobile games development. Then we'll talk about what remains relevant. I'll also touch, I think, a very important thing that many, not just artists, I think many professionals face in their career, which is artist-manager dilemma. And then I'll give a very short, as a wrap-up, a career advice. And there will be particularly one career advice that I think has a big chance of really boosting your career. So stick until the end. Let's go. So what has changed? And disclaimer here, I can only talk about mobile game art because I barely worked on other platforms. But funny enough, one of the first thing that has changed is complexity. And now the difference between mobile game art, and PC or console art is kind of not as clear anymore. You can see this is a good example of an IP, a game called Asphalt, which initially was born on mobile phones and looked very good back then in 2004, a game developed by Gameloft. And you can see how this game looked in 2018, which is 6 years old already. So at this point, it looks like PC game, a top AAA product. And at the moment, the technical limitations of the mobile phone are, well, I'm not saying they're not existent, but they don't really affect our workflow or the way that the games look that much. That being said, you can still see a lot of games that look very simple, like this big hit of last year, and I think it's still doing very strong this year, My Perfect Hotel. It's so simple. You don't even have shadows falling. And it's not because the teams who produce such games are not capable of producing something complicated and put all the ring and whistles there. Is because this is what the audience of this game actually prefers, which leads us to the second thing that changed. I think a lot of things is data-driven development. It's everything is not just art, but in terms of art, we now think, well, previously we used our gut feeling and hypotheses and references to decide how the game looks. That's all still valid. You can't test thousands of different art styles, but you can pick two and you can test which ones actually quite early, even on the prototype phase, which one clicks with audience better. I'll show you this example. So here's a video ad. I think it was shown on Instagram for the very kind of early prototype that we developed inside of DevTel. And it's kind of essentially the concept. It's roguelites game with physics, like think of it as Survivor IO with physics. So that's one approach to this game. Here's another video. Exactly same game, same mechanic, but, well, you'll see. So it's very common nowadays to test different visual styles early on. And I think it's a great tool to actually find your audience and make sure that you're going in the right direction. It's all about CPI, cost per install nowadays. Marketing really depends on how cheap you can get audience in your game. So visual style is a massive factor of it, right? So now it's and to be honest, I prefer to be data-driven rather than having, like supervisor telling me, well, like it used to be when I worked as a digital artist, like they have this feeling that the game needs to look this way without giving any reason. Now we can be much more objective selecting visual styles. Free-to-play model, another thing that affected a lot of things, but from the art perspective, I think the main effect that I see is lots of UI, lots of interfaces, essentially free-to-play. And of course, not every mobile game is free-to-play, but it's quite a big thing. Most of games are free-to-play nowadays, and they require game as a service. They require lots of systems to keep players engaged, keep players in the game, and those systems require interface, windows, buttons. So previously, I think artwork for mobile game, it was mostly illustrative characters, backgrounds. Now, as much as you have illustrative work, or maybe even more, you have interfaces, and its user experience is extremely important. And well, big topic, and there has been some good talks, very good talks actually on this conference on this one. So I won't go deep about AI tools, but I want to mention, give you another angle on it, on how it affects, hiring and overall the pipeline and job market. So here's that's the picture. By the way, I guess most of AI image generators are now handling hands quite well. But what I wanted to share with you, so this is kind of, in a very simplistic terms, how the traditional game development works. You have a team, they spend some amount of time and money on something, and they get a game. Now, the fear was, and I think still is, that with AI tools, greedy companies will start firing artists, and they have fewer teams who will use AI tools to produce kind of the same game. Well, I mean, in terms of scope, within the same time. Sounds like a logical thing to do. However, there's another ways you can, go with it. What if you keep your artists, keep your art team, you give them AI tools, and then they possibly can create the same amount of content, essentially the same scale of a game within shorter time, and well, shorter money because of the salaries as well. So this is also, coming from a corporate, greedy thinking, that's totally valid as well. Even better because it's all about competitive advantage, and mobile games are extremely competitive, so you want to get on the market as soon as possible. So this actually looks very, very good. Or you can keep the same team, give them AI tools, spend roughly the same time as you used to spend previously, traditionally, on developing game, and you can get bigger game. I mean, like more content, more features, more variety in art. Also gives you a competitive edge. So from what I see in the market, and definitely what we do inside ZLab, I see two bottom approaches dominating. I'm only talking about mobile game art. I know that it really differs depending on what area of art or even what area of game art you're into, but this is what I see happening in the mobile game art. I don't think that there's any less demand on great game artists. So essentially, artists are now expected to know how to operate AI, and different companies have different approach. But even for at least like generating some references, another extreme is like creating everything with AI. It's the approach can vary, but now artists are expected to at least know how to use AI tools if they'll need them. So that was the things that have changed. Now the thing that remains relevant, and I believe will, and this talk is being recorded, so I can check it in 10 years and see, am I wrong or not? Artistic skills, I think that still super relevant. And well, that's kind of one example that came into my mind. What I assume you can also feel and see nowadays, that you can kind of, in most of cases, you can tell when you see the AI art and it feels cheap, right? So when even like beautiful things can suddenly be created by lots of people and there's like lots of it, it's kind of economics, right? So it feels cheap. And I remember word art being this amazing thing that suddenly, looks, wow, it's like 3D art in words, and everyone started using it, and now it's kind of like, well, not now, like in a year, it's a bad taste, right? So I think that now a lot of a work of an artist who uses AI is actually to ultimately hide, to make it look like it's not AI art. And usually, in order to do that, you actually need to create art. You need to tweak it. You need to do things that human artists, professional artists, who's expert in their area can do. And that's also, well, that's maybe a bit of a stretch, but I love this example of, you probably read about this. So basically, there's this fresco in small Italian church, and there was an old lady who was kind of silently coming and restoring this fresco. No one, really questioned her actions, and the fresco ended up looking like this on the right. which I think is hilarious, but also illustrates my point of even if you have like 80% of really nice looking picture, if you don't have the skills, you will still mess it up. So creating games is, you need everything to look, unified and work with the game mechanics. So a lot of things you need to do. You need to know. You need to have artistic skills up to par with images that you're working with. So artistic skills. If some artists being very harsh on themselves, saying that it's the years they invested in developing their artistic skills are wasted. Not at all. Important thing which remains valid and I think will and I think it's very important thing, especially on the kind of like more leadership, like lead artist, art director positions. Good game artist is a game designer. We're not just drawing pretty pictures, we're making game art. And for example, which character sprite, let's say like it's a sprite for the game, is better? The answer, of course, is it depends, right? So the question that artists will ask themselves, like, what's the target audience? How big is the character on the screen? What the character needs to do? So even though the more detailed picture on the right looks more polished, and but if you put it on the prototype that I've showed you later on that scale, it will look quite bad. Prioritization. So it's all about, and we never have time to polish everything in the game. Whenever we release a game, and that's pretty common in the industry, we feel that there are many things that still needs polish and needs to be finalized. So it's very important to understand where to put your effort. And here's an example from classical art. Imagine you're art director on this project, right? And you have two artists working on those two different pieces, and you need to know and communicate clearly why the piece on the left requires less details and less time to spend on than the piece on the right. You need to have the bigger picture. And in fact, if if both artists will spend equal amount of time on both pieces, you will lose some time, but also the piece will lose a lot of its message, value, strength, I believe. Soft skills and teamwork. So far, we're working with people. I don't think, well, we'll see how it goes. I don't think it will change much. And teamwork, collaboration, just being a nice person is very valid, especially, again, if your career goes more into kind of managerial route. Those so-called soft skills are essential. And self-education, of course. It also remains an important skill to develop yourself. Also, I think within artist communities, there's a bit of, well, sometimes there's a bit of toxic belief that the artist needs to, well, draw every day, to stay on top of the game and spend all their time developing their skills. I personally believe that, well, not believe, I know for sure that most of my skills were acquired within the working hours. So even though, I love, creating art on my spare time, I believe there are so many opportunities to learn within the tasks that you have on, within your normal job. If you're conscious about taking tasks that give you a possibility to learn, if you're using the tasks to, for example, you're doing animation, get a book on animation and read it, and while you're going through the chapters, use those things that you learn with this animation task that you're now doing. So my belief is that you can keep your spare time for relaxing, maybe occasional learning, but don't be harsh on yourself if you're not improving every day. So that wraps up the first part of this talk, the main one, and this is a summary of the things that I have mentioned. What you can see is that the things that have changed, they're mostly related to the processes and tools, and the things that are on the right are actually like skills. So, the topic of this talk is Mobile Gamer Artist 2024 edition. which is a bit of clickbait because, as you can see, skills remain relevant. You need to, to educate yourself on new tools, you need to be aware of how the new pipelines and process work, but good old, foundations still are relevant. So don't worry that much about AI. It doesn't discount any of the time you invested previously in becoming a better artist, better professional, nicer person as well. It's all relevant. And I believe that the jobs are safe. So a bonus topic here, which I thought that's quite important, and I personally also have quite interesting kind of relation with this topic, is artist and manager dilemma, or pretty much any expert/manager dilemma at some point of your career, certainly mine. There's a choice, like whether you focus on your skills as an artist, like an expert artist, or you go kind of like operating and managing maybe a small team of artists, maybe a bigger team of artists over time. And for me, this is a happy place. So headphones on, music, I'm focused on a task, no disturbance, and this is how I'm usually most productive. And here's a calendar which our art director Ola has kindly allowed me to share for next week. So this is how her week looks. She's an art director, so it's quite hard. Those two images are not, well, two extremes, right, of one thing. And we talked, when I was preparing this talk, we talked with Ola about, the difference, what would be the right approach to this artist expert versus manager dilemma. And there's some good relevant questions that, artists can ask oneself to kind of decide whether it's good for them to go. And usually, managerial route is paid a bit better. We try to have equal opportunities for expert and managerial route within that level. But overall in industry, it's just a more rare combination of skills, good, artist and good manager. So those are all good questions to ask yourself. But I think that the most important one and simple one is, do you enjoy it? Even if it's paid slightly better, I mean, it's a personal decision, but will it make sense to do something that you're enjoying less, even if you're being paid a bit more in some cases? And I believe that, route of art director or lead artist, where you spend a lot of time on meetings and talking and communicating within the team, can feel less rewarding, because as an artist, you can create something beautiful within a day, and you look at it at the end of the day before leaving at home, and you're happy because it looks quite good, right? Feels great. With manager, well, usually people go to you with problems, right? So it always feels like, there's more problems to come. You're not satisfied with yourself, but there are some other kind of like slow burning rewards from being a manager, such as, I think for me, the biggest one is seeing people grow, like a beginner artist coming to the company, and within a year, with right, attention and help and tools, they just create amazing art that I could have never created myself. This feels great. It just takes longer time, and sometimes you need to search for those things or rebind those things that your work is actually, bringing some good things. They're just not as evident as just being an artist and create nice things. So in my case, my story was I began my career as an artist. Then I started, I got a little small team of artists, so I became a lead artist, and I loved the creative control over the game's look, and I loved working with people. It's amazing to have this creative collaboration. Then I kind of skipped the art director route because, we found the company, and I have become a creative director, which is kind of a combination of art director and design director, because I was also doing some game design, and it was overwhelming and it was hard. And over time, we got a proper separate art director and design director, and I essentially was able to draw again, create game art again, and I'm happy doing that. Also, all those things, I think that's also this dilemma. It's not something that you have to make decision once and for all your life. It's dynamic. At some part of my stage of my career, I loved being like a single artist. Then I loved working as a team. Now I'm working with like a small team, or even creating some prototypes of my own. I can totally see myself to working with a bigger team again. So I think it's good to try things. It's good to have trials in life on things that you want to try, and if it doesn't work for you at the moment, maybe it will work later. So it's kind of a decision that there's no urgency to make. Just try. If you have a chance, just try it. And finally, like a very short 3 points for career advice. First one might be obvious, but I think it's super important. Make people want to work with you. So be a great professional, very nice person, and learn and share your knowledge. And it's also very practical advice, I think, because whenever I feel that there's a new team, for example, being formed in Zeptolab, and teams are kind of deciding who they want to have on board, whenever I hear that team really wants that artist or programmer or game designers, I know that the person really doing great job and probably deserves some reward for it. So it's very clear, believe me, like when those things happen, it's a great. If you're in a good demand within the company, you're doing something right. If not so, try to analyze what's missing. Just bribing people with chocolate is a good start, but wouldn't solve it completely. Secondly, take good care of yourself. There's lots of course, good advice on mental health and avoiding burnout, which I think is super important, but also sometimes taking care of yourself can be interpreted as take it easy, which I think is not good advice. I see taking good care of yourself as kind of like going to gym. So you want to work hard, and I think working hard is the only way to achieve result, right? So in this case, you're taking care of your body. If you want to see effect, you need actually to work out quite hard. But just know your limits, right? So you want your work to be challenging enough, but you need to be able to stop and decrease the weight and adjust it, not to break yourself. So taking good care of yourself is also providing enough challenge for yourself. Just be aware of where is your limit. And finally, the secret, super important and powerful advice, and I'm not joking, is ask for a promotion. And I was rehearsing this talk within the company. I probably created a bit of problem for us and for HR department, but also like being a company founder, I see this pattern quite a lot. The people who are more cheeky, brave, and go and ask for a promotion do get promotion more often. That's a fact. Even if there's equally talented and hardworking person who's just a bit more shy with that, we try to monitor the situation in the Zeptolab and really reward both equally. But just generally, also from my personal experience working in companies before Zeptolab, it's important not to be shy about it. And there's lots of introverted people within industry. You don't want to to create conflict. That's totally understandable. But there are two outcomes of you going and asking for a promotion. Both of those are good. First one, you get a promotion. Great. Second outcome is you won't get a promotion, but you'll receive a feedback of how you can achieve it. And maybe given, well, if not, you should ask for it, maybe given a timeline. So where do we get back? And we check how's your progress with those things, maybe with those areas where you need to improve. And revisit this question. So if you haven't asked for a promotion for, let's say, last half a year, I think it's time for you to do so. So if there's one thing that you'll get out of this talk, then this is the action point, and this will boost your career, guaranteed. That was all I wanted to share. Thank you so much for your attention. We do have a bit of time for questions if you have any. Oh, I think there's one. Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. My question, this generalizes a little bit, but the mobile games companies and AAA companies typically are quite different, as we know. Not just in terms of the art process, but in terms of culture as well within the companies. And I guess the scale of the projects is partly, contributing to that. But as our devices get more powerful, mobile devices, do you see mobile games having to become like these AAA companies? And if so, how do you feel, how can mobile games companies get there? Or could we do that a different way? Could we reach that scale or scope of game in a different way? Or do you feel that perhaps the market for mobile games just doesn't require that constant push for graphics, that constant push to increase, the kind of fidelity of the technology and so on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that it's a matter of your company strategy, really, and the audience that you can want to reach, essentially. For Zeptalab, if you've seen our games, they look most of them are 2D, so they look quite simple, so they don't require those complicated pipelines and are essentially cheaper to develop. And again, if you look at the top grossing games on mobile, many of them look very simple. Many of them are 2D. So I think also for, we're not a big company. For a smaller company, for a medium-sized company, although the tools have become better, and now you can create amazing stuff with Unity or Unreal, I would go for something that looks maybe a bit simpler. But actually, again, simpler is not a bad thing. Simple is actually a great thing, and usually simple means bigger audience, and that's great, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's another one here.
Thank you for the talk. Amazing. I noticed that with PC games, the game become bigger. Like they launched bigger and bigger projects on terabytes, depending, because we have stronger GPU cards.
Yeah.
So do you notice something like this with mobile games, with mobile gaming? Is there a similar trend? What could you?
They do get bigger, yes. Like previously, I think Cut Drop was, it's like 14 years ago, but it was developed within half a year. Now it's really hard to, maybe in hyper casual, that's a bit different thing, but like a mid-core core game usually takes like 2 to 3 years, and then there's like soft launch phase. So in terms of development time, actually, it's quite similar, right, to PC titles. It's just like you're spending time not that much on, creating content. You're actually spending a lot of time just trying things. If you're game in soft launch, you're just constantly trying different things to achieve the right metrics, right? Retention, monetization. It's this process of finding a way for your game to survive, essentially. So the process is long and it's expensive, and it has become, and I think it's growing also. But it's just like different things you spend your time on in mobile.
Hi. So question, I guess it's not strictly just art, but more platform, mobile versus PC. It's starting a new company or a new project, and you're looking for an audience. Would you recommend looking for that audience on mobile or looking for that on, say, PC, given the competitive nature of the mobile market at the moment?
Right. So if I understood the question correctly, if you're starting a new company, whether you should consider like mobile or some other platform, right? So again, my background is mostly mobile, so I can't really give maybe like great advice on both platforms. What I see now, actually, there's mobile games business is also struggling like the rest of the industry. So there's the marketing has become more expensive. There's lots of competition. So mobile games is also quite a hard thing to be in. The benefits, I think, are still just, I think you can create very successful projects with a smaller team. So I can't really, I mean, you can create some nice indie games on Steam, I assume, with small team. But I guess well, usually those are very niche oriented, right? For mobile, I believe there's still a chance for a small team to create something that would become something big, extraordinary. The chances are low, like they always have been, right? But I would probably choose, but I'm very biased. I would still choose mobile industry as a starting point. Although I think that the current trend is cross-platform. So if you can develop something that would be relevant, well, you still need to select your primary platform where you focus on. But with tools like Unity or Unreal even, you can now develop something that can run on any platform. So I think that's a very valid strategy. Just select which platform is your core. Maybe it's mobile. And then you're still having all the opportunities of releasing it on Steam, Nintendo Switch, or any other.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
What are your favorite tools for pixel art and vector art? Because I used GIMP back when I was doing games for Nokia, but today I don't know what are the current favorite tools.
For Nokia games?
Yeah.
Yes, I've been there as well. I just use Photoshop. I mean, I'm not doing that much pixel art nowadays. And the problem actually is a very big problem with pixel art nowadays. It's just the displays are too of a high resolution. You have Retina display and the pixel is tiny, so you can't really judge how your pixel looks at the device. I'm really struggling with it. But yeah, for me, Photoshop has been always the main tool, but it's really a matter of preference.
Thank you.
Thanks for your talks, are really good. And sorry about this question.
No.
Can you go back to the very beginning of your slide showing us your spectrum?
Absolutely.
Because I've never seen anything like it.
Okay.
I think.
Let's see.
I don't know if I'm the only one in the room who had a spectrum.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's like no spectrum I've ever seen.
I think there are different variations of that spectrum.
That's amazing.
What was the setup? Well, that's not exactly a photo of my setup, but what I had was very similar. Yeah, just a keyboard that you plug into TV.
Yeah.
Right, and then you have like a normal kind of tape, audio tape reader.
But did your spectrum look like that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, like a big hard, unit.
No, I mean the actual thing is this. This is your ZX Spectrum.
Yeah.
So this is just a separate.
No, I know.
TV.
That looks like, to me, in the UK, we didn't have those.
Right. Yeah. So
the ones we had looked really different. I was
right.
like,
I
thought it was an AI generated picture.
Okay. Yeah, I'm originally from Russia, so we still had ZX Spectrum,
Cool.
label on it, but it might have been quite different.
It's really cool. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi there. Thanks for the talk. I was going to ask in terms of the mobile market is super saturated with games, right? And just all the time there's loads and loads of new games out. It'd be really interesting to know what your sort of studio philosophy is in terms of picking what game to actually make. So I guess slightly more design than art, but just be interesting to know how you as a studio kind of approach choosing a game to make and making sure it's visible on the market.
Thank you for this question. We have been quite chaotic as a company, as you have seen, developing very different games. I mean, it started with Cut the Rope, but we always, I personally loved working on different kind of games. We never really wanted to focus on one thing, and milk it out. So there's very different games in our portfolio. They're still more or less kind of casual cute looking, but yeah, we have like multiplayer shooter and we have like cute puzzler. I think it is a strength of the company because well, that's the thing that many of the people inside that appreciate, having opportunity to work on different games. And also what we're trying to achieve, we don't have the budgets of huge companies who can just buy their marketing. We need to be smart with how we acquire users. So what we try to do is to find the gameplay that would provoke interest from the audience when they see it, right? When they see video ad, oh, that's something different, I want to try it. So having this kind of wide brainstorming field for the projects is a business strategy in that sense. The downside, of course, is that our expertise is kind of spread all around. So what we're currently trying to do is actually to kind of narrow down our strategy a bit, because yeah, we want to accumulate more of kind of expertise and also technical solutions, within some kind of niche or within some genre. But it's just selecting the game, what you want to develop. It's a lot of guessing. It's looking at the market. It's testing, like I showed you, like creating a prototype and testing marketing, whether you see marketing interest. And also gameplay testing is still very important. You create a prototype. Is it fun to play? Is the team who's developing the project is excited about it and playing it maybe outside of working hours and competing in it? Those always good signs. So yeah, there is still no kind of secret recipe to it. It's a lot of guessing. It's analyzing. I think it's just putting lots of data in your head, and then your imagination spits out something, and you just kind of look at it and you decide whether it's good enough to be developed further.
I think just on that point there, starting a new game, new ideas, finding new players. Do you have any sort of go-to places where you try and find players to put your game in front of, your ideas in front of?
I think, well, first of all, checking what's in top download charts is a good start. I constantly look at the top, free downloads, also on top grossing games. So this is on different countries. Well, mostly like US, UK. It gives you a good idea of what's in demand at the moment. You still need to keep in mind that just so the games that are successful now, if you start creating something similar, by the moment you release it, it won't be relevant anymore. But it gives you a good starting point. Like, okay, so those are successful games. What can come next, or what are the lessons maybe I can take this game and mix it with something different and create a better and hopefully more accessible game. So it's a good starting point for the brainstorm. I also find very useful actually to check what video ads are performing well, and you can use Sensor Tower for that. Just check, what are the top, performing creatives, like essentially video ads, and you get lots of weird stuff there. But it's also a good kind of thing that can spark your ideas. So data essentially is a good source for this. But also just besides successful games, there's some maybe less successful games, but that have some very interesting gameplay, very interesting ideas that maybe can be made into something financially successful. So again, like my process is it's a black box, but everyone has their own process. For me, just loading lots of information inside, and then at some point you hopefully get some idea that worth developing into the game. I've been signaled that the time is over. Thank you so much for the questions.